Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to talk about the first 10 words of Unit 11 vocab, and I'm going to get started on Shurley Chapter 11. The Chapter 10 review we did yesterday, most of us did pretty well on it. A few people are still struggling with indirect objects. Go back and look at the videos where I talked about them. Look at Chapter 10, I believe it's Lesson 1 in your Shurley book. Look at those examples and lessons. And if you still need more help on those, you're still kind of unsure about indirect objects, let me know, and maybe I can find some more material to help you out if you've exhausted those resources. Most of us did pretty well with quotation marks, which I was impressed by, but those grades will go in today. You should already know what you made from classroom, though I think it tells you every time you take something. Most of you went back and made sure your essays were submitted. I got several emails from people who, of course, had already submitted, so thanks for double checking. But a few people still didn't submit, and a few that surprised me. So if you're one of those people, get in touch with me. We'll work something out, but you need to submit that essay, okay? With that, I'll get started on Unit 11, vocab. Choosing the right word has been posted since about 7:45 or so this morning, so make sure you do that before midnight. If you have any questions or difficulties with that, let me know. All right, so the first word is alias, A-L-I-A-S. And the alias, this is a noun. It's an assumed name that somebody goes by. So if I commit a crime and I have to move halfway across the country, I might come up with an alias. I might name myself Kent Rorschach or something weird like that. Something completely different than my name. It would be an alias that I would go by so people wouldn't know who I was. It's like an assumed name and identity that you use to hide who you really are. So you could say the criminal went under or went by an alias so that people wouldn't know who he was. So commonly people use really common last names like my own, Jones or Smith, as an alias. So the name John Smith is a really common alias because it's the most common name in the English language. So if someone calls themselves John Smith, it kind of raises a red flag because you're like, is that really your name? But it's a pretty common word when you might see on crime shows and things or mysteries where people go by an alias to hide their real identity. Word 2 is amble. So to amble is to walk along really slowly, like to stroll, to just kind of move about slowly. This is a verb. It can be used as a noun. You could say, I went for an amble this morning. So I went for like a lazy walk, a slow, leisurely walk. Like this isn't like you're in a hurry to get somewhere. This is like you're walking down by the river walk here in town or something, and you're just taking a stroll. You're ambling along, watching the water and maybe the sunrise or something like that. It's meant to be kind of a relaxing thing. Word 3 is burly. Somebody who's burly is big, strong, muscular. You might think of like an NFL offensive or defensive lineman or a linebacker. Somebody, who bench presses 300 and something pounds, probably weighs well over 200 pounds themselves. So big, strong person, burly, like a lumberjack. It's a pretty common word, adjective. Okay, use it to describe someone. Word 4 is distort. So to distort something, we had misrepresent in our last unit. This is kind of similar. To distort something is to alter it such that it's not the way it really is. It's to make something appear in a way that it's not. So if you look through a window that's really old and maybe stained and the glass is kind of thickened at the bottom and it's thinner at the top, it's going to warp or distort the image you see on the other side. If you go in a fun house and you've got all the mirrors around and they change the way you look and everything and your reflections in a million different places, those are distorted images of you, okay? And that's actual physical distortion, like what you're seeing. You could say, she distorted the facts of our argument and made me look like a liar. That would mean that the person you had argued with changed what was actually said, warped it in such a way that it wasn't what was really happened anymore. So distort is a verb. It's basically just to twist, to change something into a way it's not. Now you can actually physically, literally distort something. So if I take, say I've got some flexible material like a bendy ruler. Say I've got one and it's straight, and I take it and I twist it into like a helix shape, kind of like a little spiral. I've distorted it physically, like a literal distortion. So it can be used a lot of different ways, but it's always that twisting, that changing something to be not what it originally was. Word 5 is dogged. Now this doesn't really have to do with dogs. It might have originally somewhere way back in the word's origin. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But this is an adjective. Someone who's dogged, they refuse to give up. They try really hard. They're persistent. You hear this word as an adjective a lot with the word determination. So you would say his dogged determination caused him to succeed. Okay, so his consistent, unyielding determination caused him to succeed. If you're dogged about something, it means you're never giving up. You're working towards it constantly. You can't be put down, basically. So pretty easy word to use, I think. Use it with determination if you want a really easy sentence like, her dogged determination caused her to win. That's a pretty easy sentence. Always an adjective. Word 6 is dumbfounded. This is also an adjective. So dumbfounded, you're caused to be dumb. Not stupid, but confused, out of sorts. So if we were sitting in our classroom one day and a bird flew through the window, not into the window, through the window, and started flying around the classroom, I would probably sit there like this and be dumbfounded for a few seconds trying to figure out what just happened. So if a student stands up on top of their desk and does a backflip off of it in the middle of class, we would all probably be dumbfounded. We'd be very confused. We wouldn't know what was going on. We'd be kind of shocked. So it can be something weird that happens like that causes you to be dumbfounded. It could also be terrible news. So if you hear that there was a plane crash and it killed, several hundred people, you might be dumbfounded at that news, like shocked, completely unable to speak. Because the original meaning of the word dumb wasn't stupid. It was like mute. It was like can't speak or doesn't speak. So it would be something that would cause you to be speechless. Okay, so it can also work in that way. Something that can confuse you, shock you, cause you to be speechless, anything like that, dumbfounded. Word 7 is extinct. You should probably know this word. It's an adjective. Like dinosaurs are extinct. It means no longer living. It means they don't exist on the planet anymore. So this is an adjective used to describe something that's out of usage or out of existence. Like I said, dinosaurs are extinct, or woolly mammoths are extinct. This can also be used to describe like products and things or businesses. You could say, like if a business went out of business, you could say it was extinct. That's not really a common usage of it, but it is technically a correct usage. Defunct would be a more accurate usage, but that's not a vocab word. Don't worry about that. But you might say that business is extinct, meaning it's gone out of business. It no longer operates anywhere. Like Blockbuster is almost extinct. I think you guys probably don't even know what Blockbuster is. Your parents do. But it means it's no longer active. Or if like there's an old lumber mill somewhere near you where you live, you might say, and it hasn't operated in 20 years, you might say that lumber mill is extinct. It's not in operation. Again, it's used way more commonly with like living things that don't exist anymore. You would say they're extinct. But you can use it to describe like businesses and other things. Word 8 is grit. So grit can be several different things. It can be a noun or it can be a verb. So grit is a noun. It can be like sand, gravel, like gritty stuff, like something that's got grit to it. Like if you pick up a handful of sand, that kind of coarse, rough texture of it, that's grit. If you can also use this as a noun to describe like courage, like somebody's really bold, they don't give up easily, they're tough, like toughness, courage. There's a movie, an old Western with John Wayne in it called True Grit that your parents or grandparents probably know. They did a new version of it a few years ago. But it's talking about like true bravery, true toughness. This can also be a verb. It can be like to grind something, like if you grit your teeth. I'm not going to do it for you because it's an awful sound. But if you grind your teeth together, that's gritting your teeth. That's using it as a verb, kind of to grate something together like this, like I'm gritting my fingers together right now. So use it as a noun, use it as a verb. It's something rough, basically. If you're using it as an adjective, or well, as an adjective, but to describe a characteristic of someone, like that person has a lot of grit. It means they've got a lot of toughness. They're kind of rough. They're really brave. They're not a person you'd want to pick a fight with. Otherwise, it's that texture of being rough, or to grind something together as though it were rough. All right, word 9 is inevitable. Something that's inevitable means it's absolutely 100% going to happen. Okay, like it's inevitable that I'm going to post this video after I make it, because otherwise I wouldn't make it. It's inevitable that you will continue to go to school until you're old enough to either decide you're not going anymore or you've graduated. Things like that. It's inevitable that the sun will come up tomorrow morning. Now, yeah, obviously something weird could happen and none of those things could be true, but for the most part, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. So you might say it's inevitable that my mom will find out that I lied to her about my grade because she's going to check RenWeb. It means your mom's absolutely 100% going to find out. There's no way you can avoid it. It's inevitable. So that is an adjective. Word 10 is ingrained. So ingrained is... it's talked about a lot of times with things like roots, like something's got roots put in, it's ingrained. It means it's stuck in something really firmly. You're not pulling it out very easily. So if there's a plant that's ingrained in the dirt, you're going to have to pull pretty hard to get its roots up. This is used more often figuratively than literally. Okay, so the literal usage is like a plant is ingrained in the dirt, its roots are ingrained. Figuratively, though, it's like the idea that 2 plus 2 equals 4 is so ingrained in your head that that's a problem you will never miss unless you're doing it on purpose. Like if I ask you what 2 plus 2 equals, you're automatically going to know it's 4 pretty much no matter what. You would have to be, being willfully stupid in order to miss that problem because it's so ingrained in your head. Like 2 plus 2 equals 4, 3 times 3 equals 9, and things like that. Those are facts that are just ingrained in your head. You know those 100% for sure. It's not something you're going to forget. Your birthday is ingrained in your head. You're not going to forget your own birthday unless something really serious happens to you. So some of this fixed in really deeply. It's set in. It's not getting pulled out very easily. It's not something you forget very easily. And ingrained is also an adjective. All right, so that's our first 10 vocab words. Really quickly, I'm going to introduce Shurley chapter 11, lesson 1. There's one new concept in this. It's sort of new. I've talked about it a little bit. So these are predicate nouns. So when we were talking about subject and object pronouns, I said there is a case where you will use subject pronouns after the verb, and that's when the verb's a linking verb. Okay, so like I am he. Like who broke the vase? It was I. Okay, it comes after the verb, but we use the subject form of the pronoun because it's a linking verb, not an action verb. It's like it was, linking verb, I. So they will use that subject version, I, instead of me. You don't. It was me sounds okay, but it's not grammatically correct. So that's what's called a predicate noun or a predicate nominative. Predicate nominative is the terminology you'll use in 7th grade. But here we call it a predicate noun, and this introduces us to our pattern for sentences, which is subject noun, linking verb, predicate noun. And it can be as simple as it was I. Okay. So this is something like if I say I am a teacher. Okay, I is the subject noun or subject pronoun. Am is the linking verb. A is obviously an article adjective. Teacher is the predicate noun, okay, because it's renaming I. I and teacher are the same thing there. I'm saying I am teacher. So teacher is linked back. That's what a linking verb does. It links something. I am teacher. Teacher is linked back to I, that original subject noun. It's renaming it. That's why it's the predicate nominative. Nominative means like naming. So it's a predicate noun. So if you said something like, I am a boy or I am a girl, that boy or girl gets linked back to I by the linking verb am. If I said they are students, they are linking verb students, predicate noun links back to it. That's a pattern for sentences. These are pretty easy. Okay, now when they get mixed in with other things, it can be a little bit trickier. Like if I throw in mixed pattern sentences, which is what chapter 10 in Shurley was. It was mixed pattern sentences. I'm not doing that right now. I'll probably do some things like that, but I'm not super worried about you recognizing sentence patterns as much as I am you learning the parts of speech, why they go where they go, what they do, and all of that, and how to make your own sentences. But we'll do some practice exercises. Maybe tomorrow I'll post one using predicate nouns and identifying predicate nouns in sentences. Something like, first of all, obviously find the verb in a sentence. I've told you guys that. Find what's happening in the sentence. If it's not an action verb, but it's a linking verb like am, is, are, was, were, been, things like that. Find that and then find what it's connecting. So if it says, she is a doctor, okay? Is the verb in that sentence. It's a linking verb. If it's a linking verb, it has to link two things. She is obviously the subject, so she's being linked to something. So who is she? Doctor. Okay, so doctor links back to she. Subject pronoun, she. Linking verb is. A, article adjective, obviously, doctor, predicate noun, links back to it. I think that's pretty straightforward. Look at chapter 11, lesson 1, review over it, look at some of the example sentences there. Again, I'll probably post some exercises or an exercise for that along with synonyms and antonyms for Unit 11 tomorrow. Let me know if you have any questions on those. Like I said, we touched on those a little bit when we did pronouns, so it shouldn't be completely unique to you. It shouldn't be something completely new. But review over that, look at that lesson in preparation for tomorrow's exercise. Let me know if you have any questions on any of those first 10 words or anything we've covered recently. Again, if you're one of those few people who still has not submitted an essay, there aren't many of you, get in touch with me, get me an essay. We'll work out something, but I really don't want you to get a 0 on a test grade. All right, see you guys.